Thank you so much, Molly, for joining us today. This is going to be a chilled chat between me and you. The point of these client showcase interviews is to shift those who are watching their mindset in terms of like what's possible, because the things you're able to accomplish and the things that, you know, in our world, we can be in our bubble. And one of the biggest benefits of doing these interviews, because I want to show those who are listening and watching that you are a real live person and these results are real for yourself. And also, you know, like I dive on into this interview as if I have my clients all watching. So I actually dive on into like the tactics, what are the things. And this interview, while chill, is still high level. It's not going to be just for beginners, just like, oh, how did you get into this? But more, these are the tactics, this is what worked for you. And then also, I'm very candid with this, with the way I interview as well. Like Molly has already have a thriving business for a long time. And so I want to get into what are the differences? What are the things that happened that shifted the way you thought, that enabled you to get, you know, the results that you have. So before we get into that though, let's take a rewind. Let's rewind back the time. And let's get into like, what's your origin story, Molly? Let's hear it for those who
okay,
don't
cool.
know you.
All right. Well, I have to warn you, I have not even finished my first cup of coffee for this morning because I'm in Australia. It's 5:30 in the morning, so it is still dark outside. And yeah, it's very early. I got up for you so that I could do this.
I feel all the feels. Thank you so much.
Yes, you were loved, Kim. You were loved. Yes. So my origin story. Let's see. I had my own dog training business for a long time, since I was a baby at 22 years old. And around the time I was 29 or so, we decided that we wanted to adopt children from overseas before having biological children. And in the process of doing that, and it being a very, very, very difficult thing that was going on with the difference between the countries and the documents and everything else, it took a lot longer and cost a lot more money than it was supposed to. And in the meantime, we decided, okay, well, we'll go ahead and have a biological child because this adoption thing is clearly not going to work out. So we had a baby, and within a couple months after my oldest biological child came along, the adoptions went through. So we went from 0 to 4 kids in the span of about 6 months, 3 of whom were special needs teenagers from overseas.
Wow.
So here I am at 29, brand new baby who also had a heart condition at the time, 3 adopted children from overseas, and a dog training business that was now failing because the economy had collapsed.
Oh,
so we had just a really, really, really rough situation. And I was like, okay, well, the dog training business is not going to work right now. I need to do something different. And so I started a new business, you know, because that's how we are. We're like, I'm not going to go back to corporate. I'm going to make another business. And so I did. And I dove into learning more marketing things to help with this new business, and realized that there was a lot of things that I was just being kind of sloppy with in my own business, in the dog training business, that if I changed those things, despite the bad economy, maybe it would still work. So I changed those things and went from flat broke, worse than broke, to having the best month ever the next month in that business. And so all the things that I had learned, and it was like a $20,000 month at the time, which with inflation would be like, you know, what, $28,000 or something like that now these days. So with all the things that I learned and figured out, I started helping my other dog trainer friends who were also struggling, eventually created a workshop, launched that workshop, got into launching. And this is back in like 2011, started launching, doing workshops and challenges and all kinds of different things since then. So the business has been going since then. And one of the things, like you mentioned, is that even though I've been doing this for a long time, and now, you know, I help other audiences as well, besides just the dog trainers, it's one of those things that, like, just because there might not be something groundbreaking that's new to learn doesn't mean you don't get new ideas. There's a difference between knowledge and ideas. So I could listen to you all day, and it might be things that, because I'm kind of more experienced as, you know, in doing launches and doing an online business, doesn't mean that I don't get new ideas. And that's exactly what happened. So fast forward to now, for the last couple of years, overlapping with the dog trainers, I teach marketing psychology and human behavior and marketing related to, you know, how to get people to listen to you and buy from you. I teach all that to everybody. So that's what whypeopledostuff.com is about. because part of teaching dog trainers is teaching them how to understand humans and not just dogs. So I'm pretty good at that. And that's how that happened. But yeah, so everything is kind of under the Why People Do Stuff umbrella, but I still do launches to the dog trainers just as like my little micro audience of just professional dog trainers. So I did launches recently based on ideas I got from you. And so that's what I will tell you about.
I love that. Like we've discovered is that, by the way, incredible story. That is like chef kiss, like incredible story you have. And you got through some tough, rough times there. So commend you for that. And it's curious. So often we leave a business because we're like, yeah, it doesn't work. And then we go and we learn more fundamentals.
Exactly.
Wait a minute. I didn't give it my best shot over there, which happens a lot, very frequently, because we're in our own world, and we're the things we see as a problem is like right there in front of our face, when we can take a step back and see a bigger picture and identify other things that we can tweak. So I love that you went back and revisited and made a success out of it, which you're still helping people with today. One of the things I want to dive into is, like what exposed you to Ignite? I love that we're getting more seasoned marketers enrolling with our program. We have people who have ran 7-figure agencies, and it's just the quality of people that we're enrolling now is, like more seasoned marketers that still, they're like, there's still more to learn. So I'm going to get into this. So what inspired you to take a look at what we have and go, okay, I'm going to invest in myself and see what Kim's got over there? How did you stumble upon us?
Well, I was being interviewed on an online summit that you were also being interviewed on. So I saw your video because a lot of my audience is in a Facebook group, and your presentation was about monetizing your Facebook group. And I was like, I could probably do a lot better job. I'm kind of lazy with my Facebook group, even though it's like I have a lot of my audience in there. And so I watched your presentation, and I got ideas just from that really short presentation of things that I could do differently. I have an assistant that was already not completely utilized, and I was like, there's some things that I could have her do to take some stuff off my plate, but really make better use of my Facebook group. So I just had all these ideas. And these are all things that people can do when they're beginners and their group is brand new. And I'll illustrate that in a minute by telling you about the actual launch that I did after I met you, because that was actually that launch that I did that we're going to talk about was right after my big like semi-annual launch. So I had already done a launch, and I was like, what am I going to do, Kim? Like, you want me to launch in the next 30 days? I just launched, and then so I did something anyway. So that's what I'll tell you about what happened. And I have updates for you that you don't even know. So I'll tell you that too.
Ooh, juicy.
It is very juicy. So then, so when I met you, again, that thing about where we always say that having some kind of coach or being in some kind of program gives you that perspective that you don't get on your own. Even if you're already advanced, even if you've already done all the things, you kind of know how everything works. You've had success, things are going pretty well. There's always like a new level. And the only way to really get it a lot of times isn't really just to get more of the fundamentals and be obsessive with buying courses and things like that. It's to get that perspective, because you can't see what's right under your nose. And a lot of times you just can't see it because it's right here and you can't see what's right under your nose. You need to be able to, like you said, back up. So getting that perspective from you and your team, even in just while I was talking to you about your program and how it works and all that stuff, just gave me tons of, and I'm a big idea generator person. I love just coming up with tons of ideas. I have trouble taking all my thousands of ideas and picking which one I'm actually going to finish and going to actually do. Otherwise, I do like a whole bunch of things 80% of the way. And that's what was happening with my Facebook group. My big Facebook group of dog trainers is just collecting people, and I wasn't really using it that much. So do you want me to get into like what I changed and all that stuff?
Yeah. Well, the first thing is, do you do client interviews, Molly? Do you do client interviews yourself or no?
I sometimes, not as much as you do. And that's another thing I need to change, because I have like a crap ton of testimonials, and I have a lot of videos already from those, from testimonials. And because I have so many, I haven't paid attention to doing more, but I was like, this is a good idea. I should schedule client success story interviews. Like, why am I not doing that?
It's actually a KPI as part of our client care team. It's like a KPI that we track. We want to make sure we do at least 1 or 2 client interviews a week.
Wow.
That's like part of our thing. And then X number of wins from clients have to be declared per week. And that's how we have client care like meet or fall below or exceed their KPIs. But one of the things I want to share with you, if you don't do a lot of these, is that in the questions that I asked, it weaves a lot of like the thoughts a person will have if they're just tuning in and they're watching. So one of the things would be, why even enroll with us when you already know so much? And so that gives them your perspective of like, I already know marketing. I've been in this space for a while. I still want to be part of that community. And there are some things I might not know. And the little things, so you saw me at a summit, the little things that you saw, it enabled you to say yes to a vehicle, Facebook groups that you weren't utilizing. So you feel like you were sitting on this group that you're not really fully utilizing, and you have a VA in there, but she's not like trained to be to create sales within that ecosystem, right? So those are the few things that you identified that you're like, hey, maybe I could tighten this up. So with that, the question I'm going to ask you will be kind of like coming from the perspective of someone just tuning in, and they're like, well, why would I do this? So one of the first questions is, you already did a launch, and a really big piece is people come in and I'm like, you're going to do a launch. And they're like, what? But I just did. I just exhausted my audience. They just went and saw me do this thing, and I've sent them a ton of emails. So why am I doing this again? So what enabled you to say yes to that? Because we do have people who are like, you know what? I just launched, I don't know if I can go this again. You know what? I will join you in 3 months from now. And that was, to me, I'm like, oh man, you're missing out on all these sales for all these months. You know what I mean? So let me know your perspective on that. Why launch?
Yeah. Well, yeah, and it's so true, because like whether you're new or you're more advanced or you're more experienced or not, there's always something that you're not doing the best way that you could, and not having that implemented or having that direction or having that knowledge or having that done is just costing you the potential every month that you don't do it. So there's a gap between where you are and where you could be, and then that gap is what you're spending every month if you don't change something, if you don't do the thing that's going to get you to that next level or help you reach that goal or whatever it is. So like in my case, just because I had just launched and just because I knew all the, a lot of the things already, doesn't mean that I was already doing all of the things that I could do. And one of the great things about being in a program like this is that it gives you the focus and the clarity on which things that you should have confidence, confidence in terms of an idea and a direction, because you're always like, well, I could do this and I could do that. I could do one more class. I could do, all these things. And you don't really go for it unless you have somebody say, that is a great idea. Go do that one thing, so just having people around you who, give you credit and give you confidence in the direction you're thinking of going for increasing your potential or getting to the next level is so powerful, because otherwise it's just an idea and you don't really know if it's going to work, and you're not as confident with it if you haven't done it yet. And if other people have done it, then they could say, yeah, that's a good idea. That should work. Go for it. So that's kind of what happened in my case, is that I had done the launch already. And I do my big launch for my workshop for dog trainers twice a year normally. And, I'm talking to you and you're like, well, just because you just launched that, there's other people who didn't join that, didn't watch that. Why don't you just do something again? And so that's what I did. But kind of going back to your point, your question, before I get into the numbers and what happened, it was just, essentially that you kind of underestimate the amount of things that you could accomplish if you had somebody to tell you this idea that you have is the thing that you should focus on. So just because you know all the things doesn't mean you're doing all the things. And picking which other things to do can be quite hard when you get to that point, because you're already busy, you're already doing well. You kind of just assume this is just the way it is. And every launch is just going to hit the same number every time. And, there's no real way to break out of that. but you don't break out of that until you have somebody like you come in and look at it and say, this idea that you have about making things better is the one you should do.
Yeah, the benefit of joining a community and a coaching program is to make decisions in the right order for you. That is the best next steps for you. And one of the things you saw was that you were launching once every 6 months. So you didn't realize that you can actually continue enrolling people like more frequently. And you got in, you're like, okay, I'll do this again. And what I realized also is what we think in terms of bandwidth that we have. It's, you could not binge watch the Netflix shows. You could not, you could say no to a few other things. Like what we think our bandwidth is in terms of how busy we are is actually grossly underestimated. Because the person and the being that we're so powerful, but we have these invisible ceilings to ourselves of like, it's that way. And we're not. Another thing is I love being in coaching environments because they're, especially ones where they're constantly testing and they're constantly pushing. It allows me to go, okay, well, they're pushing the envelope. I can have permission to go and push well. And a big piece of what you said was that it allows you focus and clarity and have the permission to move forward and do that thing. So I love that, what you mentioned. So how did we direct you? What are the things that you did? And let's get into the numbers and the tactics. Let's go.
Well, and about the bandwidth thing, I am very protective of my time. I'm protective of my sleep, except for getting up for this. I am protective of my health because I had quite an aggressive cancer diagnosis last year. So I'm very I take care of myself. So I don't, I have boundaries in place. I don't overwork myself. But you're right that there's a saying that I say in one of my classes that you can survive with just about anything except being alive. So you can sacrifice certain comforts and certain things temporarily to make things a lot better. And it's like that with making a difference with your health. You stop eating all the things that you love and you start exercising all the time. It's kind of a sacrifice for a little while, but it's for the benefit of something much better. And it pays you back so much more than the cost. And that's kind of what this was about, is that launching again and doing something again, I had to kind of figure out how it would fit into my own boundaries of time and not be a super ton of work again to redo the same launch, again, to my whole audience and all that, and use kind of the ideas and the knowledge and everything to kind of figure out what would work, but also what would fit within my own boundaries without exhausting me again. And so what I did was I had my challenge in my Facebook group that I had done for the big launch, and it went fine. It went well. I took the things that I felt like worked the best from it. And instead of doing a full challenge again, I condensed it into one class of the best parts, of the parts that everybody liked the most. And I did it as almost like a lazy launch. I just kind of just said, hey, if you missed the masterclass in May, I'm doing this class again. It's a condensed version. It's the best parts. It's a one-time thing, one time, 2-hour class. And so I didn't do it as the full challenge. And next time I do it, I got a ton of ideas for you for the May part before I was even in Ignite. And then, did this to just kind of like you said, get back the investment as fast as possible. So then I kind of condensed everything into the one class and just told everybody, hey, if you missed the masterclass, especially or the challenge, here's this masterclass. So I did that. And even though I had already had quite a lot of my audience opt into the big challenge in May, the class in June still got another 90 people or so who registered. And that's one of the things that I love telling everybody, is that I do quite a lot with a very, very, very small group of people. And so if you're just starting out, you'll get the hyper responders. You'll get people who are more likely to actually love you and do something. So don't be afraid of launching to a super, super tiny list, insanely small. Because I had 90 people register for that. I gave them 3 days notice. And I was like, okay, Kim says to do it, I'll go do something. And I launched this thing. I gave them 3 days notice. 90 people registered by the time that I hosted it. Because most of those people registered at the last minute. Only about 30 people showed up live. And 2 of them were my assistants. And several others were already students of mine. So they were already clients. And so there was maybe 25 people that were left over in that class live. by the end of the class, and I have a $2,000 program that I offer at the end. And so I haven't even implemented yet having like a really high end program that I offer at the end of these challenges. I just decided to just keep my old program, the $2,000 one, instead of offering a $7,000 or $8,000 or $9,000 group thing, just to not overwhelm myself, just to put those boundaries and just do something I could do and something I could accomplish with what I already had and the space that I had and the mental, space that I had and everything else. So I offered the $2,000 workshop, 10 people during the live. So out of like 25 possible people, 10 of them joined during the live. And I never would have even tried that. It was like a shocking thing because I had just launched. And usually when I launch, if I launched again in 6 months, I got nearly 30 people in the launch in May. If I'd launched it in 6 months, I'd get 30 people again. So how am I getting 10 people 2 weeks later? So the same thing, and just a condensed version. So I did that. And then 4 more people joined in the days to following what you said to do. And just kind of the post-launch stuff, the ideas I got from you for post-launch stuff. So you're just always getting new ideas of things that just work better than you think that they could. And just to have that confidence and the focus of which specific things to try instead of just experimenting with everything. You don't have to experiment everything on your own. Most things have already been experimented. You can just follow something somebody else has already tried if you have the group around you that has done that. And so that's what it did. So I ended up in that launch with 14, though I had just done the launch 2 weeks prior. And one of those people upgraded to a different program for $9,500. So then all up that launch was about $40,000 from 90 people.
No way. And really 25 real people.
Really 25 that actually watched. Yeah. So, and some of the people watched the replay, but of course, most of the people who actually take action watch the live. So then I knew that the next time I did it, I needed to just pay more attention to more people being live, obviously, because I just did it. I threw it together so fast, obviously. Wasn't a lot of time to get much better than that in terms of people watching live. About 30% maybe. So usually I try to get closer to 50, but that's with just more work, to get more people to join live. So next time I do something like this, I'll go back to the full challenge format and implement everything that I've talked to you about and learned from your group and learned from my coach in your group, to make it better and just get more people live and keep improving the offer and everything.
Yeah. So I always ask these 3 questions right after you tell me your number. $40,000 launch, 14 people, 25 really qualified people watching. Very tiny group. The biggest thing that I want to emphasize and want to reiterate, something you said really important, is that you can profit big on a teeny group. And so often I see people have 20 people show up to their training and they're so discouraged. They're like, there's only 20 people. What? I'm not going to make anything. And then they just give up. And one of the biggest things I've seen time and time again is that clients have a small group that they launch into. And if they even enroll 5 to 10 of them, a handful of them, it is a life-changing amount for such a short period of time, because we are having them say yes in a condensed timeline into an offer where it's helping them change their life. And it's just an amazing phenomenon that I witness again and again. I tell people, hey, this is possible. And they're so discouraged. So I love to hear that reiteration from you as someone that went and did a small, tiny launch into a group of people. I do want to ask you, so those 3 questions is, when you enrolled into Ignite, what is the time to first win for you? How many weeks, how many days, you felt I got to win, I'm in this and it's worth it. And then the second question is time to complete return on your investment, or time to a return on investment. How many weeks or days is that? And then also say what was your actual number? So I always ask those 3 questions because this offers let's be concrete about this. What is that to you?
Yeah, yeah. Well, full disclosure, the things that you don't know, that worked so well, a couple weeks after my launch and a couple weeks after, I talked to you. I was like, I've got the launch coming up. I did the launch, joined Ignite, did the lazy launch 2 weeks later. So the payoff was no more than that 2 weeks for sure. Because you can do things. You don't have to do things perfectly. You just go do. And done is better than perfect. And you don't have to have it perfect. You just have to get it going. So I did it, badly, just to test something and just roughly just throw something out there. And what was cool about that is that I wasn't launching to my entire list again. I wasn't burning anybody out. It was only to the people who watched. So only the people who watched, who had not watched the previous launch, even got the offer. So I didn't feel like I was overwhelming anybody or overselling anybody. So there's always ways of doing something, whatever your objection is. And say, if you but everything to death, you'll never be successful. You have to always assume that, okay, well, here's the goal. There's got to be a way to get there. There is definitely a way, and I might not see the path, but somebody else will. And sometimes you just need that perspective to get that, because otherwise I would have just assumed it's too soon. I can't launch again. Everybody has seen it. And that's just not true. There's always a way to reach a goal. You just have to assume you just can't see it if you don't know what it is. So you just need to get somebody to do it. So what I did is, after I did that one around the middle of June, so I did my launch at the end of May, joined Ignite, did the next launch in the middle of June, did it again this past week, just to test it, just because I was like, okay, it worked so well. Let me see what happens if I do it again just 2 weeks later. Did the exact same class, the exact same thing happened. 90 people registered, around between 85 and 95 by the time I did the class. A few more joined live. So it was about 40 people who joined live. More of them were people who had already either seen the class or were in my class already. So I always invite my clients, so in case they want to come and rave, which helps a lot. And then so far, it hasn't even closed yet. I've already got 9 people, I think. So it's already over a $20,000 launch again, 2 weeks after that. So 1 month in Ignite, I've already gotten launches that I would not have done otherwise, over 60,000. So the ROI with a super, super tiny group. Like, this is just the dog training group. This is just people who just watched the launches. I did not sell to my entire list. Nobody even knew my program was open during those 2 extra launches. It was just to those classes, just with, kind of pushes and ideas that I got from being with your group.
Yeah. So 2 weeks in, got my ROI.
Yep.
A month in, $60,000. And how do you feel?
Hopefully I answered the questions that you wanted to answer. I think that was everything. Yeah, I feel great. I feel like, everything you need, like I said, is usually under your nose, and you just don't see it, and you just need help with that. And then there's always extra things that you can learn as well. So I'm not saying that I even know it all, because you get in kind of this rut of just doing everything the way you think you know it. You get this burden of knowledge thinking you already do all the things that you could do, and you've done all the things, and you've already been somewhat successful. And that a next level is going to take some kind of massive change. And almost always it's small change, just something little, you're always one idea away. And that's really all it is.
You're one idea, one launch, one funnel. Just kidding.
One funnel, one idea. Yeah. Take whatever quote whoever you want. You're just one thing away.
I want to get into like more nitty gritty stuff. And before I do that, you have 4 children, you're super busy, you take care of your health, you were diagnosed with, cancer last year. If someone's like, hey, I'm too busy to do this, what would you say to that? It sounds like you were kind of way too busy to do this.
Oh, I was. Yes. Yeah. Yes, indeed.
So how did you squeeze it in, or how do you mentally go, I'm not too busy?
Right. Yeah. And no, I was not taking care of myself at the time. And that was a big wake up call, which was very good, and kind of glad for it. And after the fact. But actually, I actually have the 3 adopted kids were much older, and I was young when we adopted them. So they're all grown and out on their own now. So I have 3 biological kids now. And so my oldest that was born during that mix, he's now 14. I also have an 11 and an 8-year-old. And I homeschool all 3 of them. and we travel all the time. So since they're homeschooled and I have an online business, we're in Australia right now. Our house is in Florida. We have people who, on Airbnb, we rent it out on Airbnb when we're not there, and we just go. The kids have been to like 10 third world countries, and just, the business gives us the freedom to do that, and the homeschooling and everything. But because of the travel and the homeschooling and the business, I obviously am very busy. So I did have to like tighten up the boundaries because work and everything was so much focus. And even a year ago when I got diagnosed, a little over a year ago, I just wasn't taking care of my body. I wasn't doing all the things that I knew I needed to do. So there was no self-care involved. So after I got the diagnosis and went through the process of surgery and everything else, I've lost like 40 pounds since then. And implemented in all these health things that I do, that are time consuming. So yeah, everything just kind of has to be, in its place. And the more you focus on doing that and having those boundaries in their places where this is the time for this is the time that's off, this is the time for the kids, this is the time for work, this is the, and you pick and choose the specific things. So there's like certain things that I don't do that are part of the things that we learn and Ignite that I just haven't fit in because there isn't a spot for it in my work time yet until something else gets unprioritized. So I keep things in those boxes because otherwise I would go crazy and my health would suffer and my family would suffer and everything else. So as far as how I do that, it's really just it is a skill. You have to learn it. There's time management related skills, and I'm not naturally good at it. I'm naturally a very unfocused, easily distracted person. I'm like a dog. I can't pay attention to two things at the same time. So having that kind of clear intention of like, there's times that are for certain things and you batch those things together and you keep the clear boundaries on those things. That's really, really important.
Oh yeah. So like, especially one of the things is if you're like, oh, I'm too busy, you're not going to be less busy,
Right.
as your business grows. So the best time to handle doing stuff is when you are busiest, because then you learn. It's a skill. You learn how to manage your time.
Right.
I love that. I want to get into some tactics here for those who are listening in, who are current clients. Hello there. Let's have Let's have you dive into some post-launch stuff. Like what do you consume of Ignite? I'm very curious of that. And you said you can listen to me all day long, but what did you actually consume when you came in? And then what specific strategy did you try out that worked for you?
Yeah, it's part of it is that you get quite a lot of decision fatigue when you have so many ideas and you're not sure which one to pick, and that's part of what my challenge is. And I do have the advantage of running the business alongside some very close friends and my husband, who's my business partner as well. So, and he's very, very practical and very good at kind of getting things finished. So I'm a good starter and he's a good finisher, which is great. But I really needed like the offer call within Ignite that I got with fine tuning my offer was super helpful, just because I'm like, I have all these, I don't know which idea to pick. Like, what do I do about this? Like, I could make this program bigger. I could charge more. I could take things out and make it smaller or keep it the same price. I could have this group program. I could do this private thing. I could, like, which idea do you pick? And you just have so many. And just because your brain is going all the time, it runs out your willpower. It runs out your energy, it runs out your time, you're unproductive because you just have decision fatigue. So just having that, the stuff that I watched in the online part, the online course part of Ignite, and then talking to the offer coach to fine tune the offer and get kind of the outside perspective of what things are worth and what I could add to it, what I could take away from it, and how I could scale it and how I could make it less work. One thing that you said before is that if you're already really busy, like if you have an objection, like I'm too busy to do this program, that is in itself a reason why you need it. Because if you're too busy to do anything, there's a problem with how you're using your time, and you're either making too little for the amount of work you're doing, and you need to make more in the same amount of time in order to get out of the burnout and being overly busy, or there's something that you're doing that needs to change in just like how you manage your time and what you focus on. Mm-hmm. So without that focus and without that offer call, I would have started to get into the old habits of like just trying all the things, and just like one offer I do it one way and another offer I do another. And it would be, and it's great to test things and it's great to experiment, but you don't have to always just try everything. Like I said before, you can just have somebody say, here's what's been shown to work, and here's what's worked for a bunch of other people, and model that, the same psychology and the same reasoning and the same kind of principles that works for other people in the way that you do them in your business. The principles don't change. Just there's a whole bunch of different ways that you can implement the principles. And so, yeah, watching the videos inside Ignite just to get some new ideas of how other people do things and what works for other people. And then also talking to my offer coach to fine tune that. Those were probably the biggest things that I've done so far.
Yeah, we have a pretty big emphasis on offer coaching, and we have like designated offer coaches as well. Which offer coach did you speak to? Because we have like
Jennifer.
Okay, Jennifer, awesome.
Yeah,
Jennifer is the bomb. She's
awesome. She's got such great ideas and perspectives. Yeah,
and something you mentioned that was really important is that a lot of us go in and we throw a bunch of stuff against the wall to see what sticks, and we're consistently kind of experimenting, when you can have a multi-million-dollar business on the very same launch with the very same message, with the very same thing over and over again for like years. So consistency is what I hear a lot that people want. And then so the things that you like, it kind of opened up your eyes was, we were doing the same launch over and over again. Probably you saw us doing that, and it's fine. Like, we didn't have to go and change up our messaging every single time, or do a bunch of things that are too different. And you picked up on that, and you're like, like, I'll just try it.
Like, why can't I do the same thing again? It worked before. You're not going to be the same people watching. Just do the same thing again and just make little tweaks to make it better. You just get better at selling it. You get better at figuring out which things that you teach actually, land with your audience, and you get to know your audience better the more often you do it. And that's really, really key too, that's why I teach what I teach, because knowing the minds of the people you're talking to is so, so vital. But the more often you do the same thing with only like tiny tweaks, the better you get at that too. So there's no reason to just have to completely throw everything away and do a completely new thing every time. Just do what's worked and keep making it better. Yeah.
And I know your niche is dog training niche. Does the concepts or the things that you learn, do you feel like it can apply to other niches as well? Or like, what's your opinion on that? Because I do get a lot of times questions of like, Kim, but I do this particular thing on this particular, like, this is what I teach, is so specific. Have you helped exactly that person before? And you didn't ask me that. You weren't like, Kim, do you help like a dog trainer business do that before? But I get all those questions all the time. So for you, getting into the modules, looking at through what we have, what's your take on that?
Yeah, I feel like that there's the way I explain it is there's the difference between principles and laws. Principles don't change. Laws, there can be like a million laws for the same principles. So principles are just there. They're the concepts that just work. They're things about why people do what they do, and why they buy what they buy, and what they value, and what they have problems with, and what they need help with, and what's going on in their lives, and what they would, want to spend money on. All kinds of principles that are just kind of always consistent. And the laws are just how you implement those principles. And there's a million ways that the same thing can be implemented. And it's just sticking to the same psychology and the same principle at its core. So it doesn't matter what the business is or who the audience is. You have a person selling to other humans a thing that they need or want. And that's pretty much the principle. And it doesn't matter what industry or niche it is. It's just the same things. And so, yeah, that one of the things that I tell my audience too, is that if you have a problem or you have a goal and you want a certain thing, you see other people accomplishing it, it's really, really, everybody has a tendency to just blame everything external. It's the economy. It's my audience doesn't like to spend money. It's the people around here. It's this, it's politics. It's this and that. These are all the reasons why I can't. And then they but everything to death and say, yeah, well, I could see why that would work for that person because of this advantage that they have and the industry they're in or who they are or whatever. And then you just keep blaming external things for not doing something and not achieving the thing that you want to achieve. You have to just train yourself to think to yourself, well, if they can't, why can't I? Or if they can, why can't I? Somebody else has done it. There's no reason why I can't either. It's all knowledge. It's all just something. If you can't do something that somebody else has done, it's just because there's something you haven't experienced or learned yet. That's it. That's all it is. You have to learn the thing. You have to do the thing. And there isn't anything else that's in the way. There might be something you have to change, but that's because of knowledge that you get. So it doesn't matter what industry or niche you're in. The principles are the same.
I love that. Because sometimes, really when you teach people how to have their dog training business, you're teaching them like psychology. You're teaching them how to, get more customers, more clients.
Yep.
And it doesn't matter if you're focusing on that particular, there's nuances that exist in there.
Yep.
But a lot of people, they get success without all those crazy nuances, just by doing the thing consistently. So I love that you have like an answer that's very succinct. You're like, there's principles and then there's laws. And then I'm just like, my gosh. I love sophisticated clients. Like, I love to be able to jam on you on these things because it like feeds my soul and my brain.
I love it too. Thank you. Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, yeah, too, that it's the same thing for me, that the things that I teach dog trainers work for any other business. Dog trainers are essentially coaches. They teach people how to do something better. And so everything I teach also works for coaching businesses, and also works for service businesses, and also works for face-to-face businesses, and pretty much any business where you work with clients. And so, because it's all psychology. And so, all the nuances related to the dog trainers are specific to them and their audience, and who they're trying to attract as clients, and how to talk to dog owners, and what dog training jargon to stop using in your marketing. And those are the nuances. But the bigger picture is that they are people selling to people knowledge that they have. And so the psychology I teach them is the same psychology that would work for a coach or any other service business. So it's the same thing, that just because the example somebody sees in Ignite might be not their niche, the principles that they have to say, well, why did that work? What was the psychology behind it? And then take that thing and apply it to their audience. And that's not hard to do. It's just, you have to get out of your own head and think, well, oh yeah, well, that's, they're teaching money, or they're teaching health, or they're teaching this or that, and that's why it works. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I love that. And, I love the life you crafted for yourself, which is your business partner is your husband, and you guys travel all over the place. Your children get to visit so many places, and get to live a life that not a lot of children, get to have. So I love that you crafted that life for yourself, and it allows you to continuously explore and learn what else is there and what's new. So I want to take a moment to celebrate you with that. That's really cool. And I do want to get into actual posts. You said there's some post launch stuff that you tried, some strategies for the current clients who are watching that are like, all right, this is all cool, but what did you actually do? So one of the things you mentioned was you charged people for your training, and it was pay whatever they want. So you said a percentage of them were like, I want this for free. And then others are like, let me pay this. So tell me a little bit more of those tactics that you tried, in terms of you said that you enrolled more people after your training because of some post-launch strategy. I don't want that to be kind of vague. I want to actually dig into that for the more sophisticated, audience that's listening in.
Yeah, for sure. So obviously there's the usual, you have a class, and then there's the replay, and then you're sending people to the replay. And then, obviously if you've been at this for a while, that whatever offer you have at some point has to go away. There has to be some kind of deadline or scarcity of some point. So usually what I would have done is just say, okay, here's the replay, and then count down the clock to whenever the offer closed. And that's the normal way to do it. So in this case, what I did, especially because it was a small group, it gave me more power with staying in touch with the people individually. So what I did, and I got my assistant to help out, which, you don't have to have an assistant to do this. I just chose to have her help me with that. Especially if you're just starting out and it is a small group. But if you are more advanced, teach your VAs and everybody to do this. So especially since everybody was in a Facebook group, it's easy to go and grab their contact information and send them a DM, and send them a private message on Facebook, instead of it just being an email launched to Zoom to replay to this and that. you have much more personal contact with them because you have their Facebook profile. They were in your Facebook group, your pop-up group for the launch. So following up with them individually. So I had a very good friend of mine is one of my assistants, and I love that I can also have the freedom to, you know, pick out of my friends who needs a job and teach them how to do this stuff. So she was PMing, just direct messaging people who were in the group and just asking them, like you say to do, asking them, hey, did you watch the training? You know, do you need more time to watch the recording? The replay expires on this day. When the program closes, do you need more time? And then she'd follow up with them and just make sure they watched it. If they had questions, she made sure I answered them. And just staying in touch with the people more closely was really, really powerful because it was a small group. We were able to do that and just stay in touch with each person. So we made sure that objections were handled. We made sure they watched it, encouraged them to, you know, have that accountability to actually consume the material. So then that helped a lot. And then the people who didn't join during that time before it closed ended up joining 2 weeks later, you know, the next time I did the same thing. So it has like if I had waited 6 months, like their success would have been delayed by 6 months. And then who knows if they would have signed up 6 months from now if I just waited to the next launch. So staying in touch with people individually helped a lot. Even without doing that, just, you know, having the thing that you do where there's a deadline to watch it. And so in my case, I did pay what you want to get into the challenge, which worked really, really well. About 2/3 of the people chose to pay something. And the average was about $30 to $32 or something like that. Which is funny because it could have been zero, you know, like everybody could have just picked zero. About 1/3 of the buyers for my $2,000 program chose to pay zero on the masterclass. So it's not even just that the people who chose to spend money were the ones that bought the program. It wasn't always like that. So it was a really fascinating test. But because they felt like they chose something, they made some kind of conscious choice to value it, they were more likely to watch it. And then so they were more likely to watch the recording as well, because some of those people actually paid for it. They actually paid money. But just because they paid for it doesn't mean I need to give them permanent access. You know, so I gave them the deadline that they had to watch it by a certain date. And if they needed more time, they had to ask. And if they asked, they needed to, in my case, because I didn't have time to put in a whole bunch of strategy calls in my calendar. I just I just did that part lazy, where we just stayed in touch with them by direct message. And if they needed more time, I had them fill out a questionnaire about their business to qualify to get the extension. And then I would send them a quick Loom video telling them where I think they should focus in the class. So when they watch the class, to pay attention to this one particular part based on their questionnaire. And so it took me like 2 or 3 minutes to make the Loom video. And then I didn't have to do the strategy calls because I didn't have time in my calendar. You know, you don't have to wait until you do everything, till you can do everything perfectly, and have space in your calendar for all these strategy calls, and have space for the full challenge and all 4 or 5 days and the whole runway up to the launch and the whole post-launch things. Just do the stuff, like just do it dirty for if you have to, just to get it done really quickly and get your ROI. And you do, and it works. And then you just improve it after that. So later I might do strategy calls. I might stick with the questionnaire and the Looms, but that personal interaction where they felt like somebody was paying attention to them and somebody actually cared about where they are and where they're going individually. As much as you can implement that aspect of it and that interaction, even if you hire a VA to do it, I thought that was really, really helpful a lot. And I would have not done that in the past.
Oh man, I love that. Like, this is the juicy stuff, you guys. If you're watching, this is the juicy things.
Yeah.
Creating Loom videos, having them fill a questionnaire, bypasses a lot of your strategy calls that you didn't want to do.
Yeah.
And you added, like, you said 14 people for not the previous launch, but the launch before that. And yeah, I love it. This is the stuff that I love to discuss. We are nearing the closing of this interview. We have about 5 more minutes. It feels like the whole time sped through because I don't know, it's just we're jamming. So I do want to ask a few more questions, and then after that, it's where can they reach you? How can they find you? How can they get in touch with you? And who do you help? I know you help a lot more than just dog trainers. So with that said, being a sophisticated buyer, what are the advanced things that you recognize? Because one of the things I get is like, oh, you're just like teaching people how to do a launch, right? Or maybe that's not like what I want to do. So what have you recognized as like something that is in the future of what you're going to try out next inside of our ecosystem, that you're like, wait, Kim just doesn't teach people this just one binary thing. There's other things that's included, and this is one of the things I look forward to giving it a go or trying out. And if you're not there yet, that's fine.
Yeah.
You can be candid about it as well.
No, that's a great question. And so it's interesting because if you haven't been in this business of selling your knowledge online long enough, it's really hard to tell if a deviation from the model is a good idea. So there's like I said, there's lots of different ways of implementing the same principles that make things work for you. So you have your primary model of challenge, discovery, strategy call, and selling a high ticket offer. And that's like the core, like primary model. And then there's like deviations from it, like not doing the strategy calls or doing a low ticket offer instead of a high ticket offer. So there's like variations of the model that are kind of experimental, and they're not really like the way the regular, the typical thing would normally be taught. And sometimes people will deviate from the model in a bad way because they're just like, well, I don't want to do that. I'm going to do this thing. And then it doesn't work. So you might not have the experience of knowing which deviations will still work based on, that it still fits the psychology, still fits the principles of why the main model works. And if you change something, that it will still work. Or you might, sacrifice some. If I talked to every single person on Zoom, I probably would have made more money, and I just didn't want to use that time. And so that was my choice. I can choose, do I want to use my time or do I want to make more money? Like those are the choices you make. So if you do make deviations from the actual model, it can affect your income, but it might be a trade-off because it saved you a ton of time. And it's hard to know which things are going to actually still work within that unless you're pretty experienced. So what I would say is everybody, for the most part, should stick as closely as possible to exactly the way you explain to do it, and try not to overthink it and be too creative until you get really experienced and know which things are still going to work if you change them. So what I'm going to do is, normally part of your model is at the back end of the challenge to offer something that's not so cheap. So my core program is $2,000, and I stuck with that because that's what I had. And I didn't want to use the time to create something brand new when I was just testing something out quickly to get it launched quickly. So I was being imperfect on purpose to get it done. Let me just use what I already have. And I was strategic about which things I didn't do the absolute best way, so just so I could get it done, so there were things that I could have done better if I had more time. And that's what I think is important, is that you can do things not the best way just to get it done. And then when you do have more time, do it the best way. So the next time I do a full challenge launch, there are lots of things I can do differently. I can do more, plan time for some strategy calls for the most qualified people who fill out a questionnaire. And I think that they're more likely to sign up for a high ticket offer, and do a higher ticket offer, make my $2,000 core program a bigger, better group program, and offer the bigger version to a certain group of people, and just get a higher revenue per buyer by doing things better each time, because there are things I know I just didn't do in these launches just because I didn't have time. And it was strategic decisions to leave those things off the plan for now. So that's what I plan on doing next time, is doing the full challenge with all the ideas, and do it like more closely to the way you teach it, instead of all of these variations that I already had in place.
I love that. And like, yeah, we see people just experiment and it works out really well, and others experiment and it just flops. And we're like, just go back to what we teach you and do that. And so, couple last questions is, what does your future, you have an incredible just life right now, and I love it. How has your participation or involvement in Ignite changed the way you see about your future and what's possible? I know you were launching like every 6 months before. Now that you see, that every 2 weeks you have like, tens and thousands of dollars that's possible to come in. How has that shifted your life, if at all? And let me know, like, how has your perspective on life changed because of
Yeah.
what you know is possible now.
Right. Yeah. It's so kind of empowering to just know that if there is anything ever going on where, needed and some extra money all of a sudden, that there is a way to do it like suddenly and quickly and have tried something that worked in that way. So it's so reassuring to just have that peace of mind of knowing that there is like a cash injection you can get by doing like this micro, floppy thing to grab people that you didn't think would join because you might have just already done something. So just kind of knowing that is so great, because even in my case, there were times like last year, I had surgery, I had all the things happen, and I had to take time off. It was like 3 weeks where I was hopped up on nerve painkillers that I was a complete zombie. And I was like, oh, I'm going to be sitting around. I could read books. I could do all these courses. I can learn all these things. I can plan a launch. And I did nothing because I was recovering from my surgery. And I was way, way overconfident in how much I could accomplish. But then, when things like that happen, that you can just get back on your feet a lot faster because you have so many more things that you can do that you never thought you had that you could accomplish. So just knowing that things can be accomplished a lot better and a lot faster and a lot sooner than I originally thought just gives me a lot of peace of mind for that reason, because I've had that kind of thing happen where you have to take a break and then you have to catch up and you have to recover. And so that I think is just really really reassuring from a work-life balance standpoint, that if you needed to stop, that there's a way to pick back up and go quickly, that you don't have to just wait until your next launch necessarily to make more money.
Yeah, like there's a way for you to get quick cash injections
Yeah.
for what you have. And
yeah, for sure.
And so the future to you is like, no matter what, I can just figure out, pull something together real quick and enroll people. And just from the comfort of wherever you are.
Exactly.
Aren't we lucky? Look at us. We're so lucky.
I know.
So I love that. So if someone were to be on the fence and they're a good fit to join us, what would you say to them for Ignite? And then after that, let's go into where can they follow you and all the things. How can we support you?
Yeah. Thank you for that. So the things that will hold you back are just the things that will hold you back from anything. It's all just kind of fears that you wouldn't be able to make it worth it. And so you make this investment and that maybe it won't be worth it. Maybe it'll be things you already know, or maybe you won't be able to implement the stuff, or maybe you don't have time, or maybe, it's just all fears. It's all stuff that just gets in the way because you're just afraid of what you'll be able to accomplish. So remembering the things that I'm kind of a dummy. There's nothing really that special about me. I just learn the stuff and I do the things that I'm told to do, and I keep trying and I don't give up. And that's really all there is to it. It's all just like knowledge and implementing and learning, and then learning from what you implemented and redoing the thing and getting more knowledge, and you just keep going. But if somebody's a good fit for Ignite, they feel like they like you, they like the information they learn. There's things that are holding them back that are just either external blame things or internal worries and fears. You kind of just have to mute all that stuff and go for it, and just forget about all of the fears for a while. Just put them off to the side and just know that if it's worked for so many other people, there's no reason why it won't work for you too. And any reason that there is can be fixed in the program, that there's something in there that will fix it. And you don't have to do the things perfectly, and you don't have to have tons and tons of time in order to be able to do it. You just have to know what to do.
Or even a huge audience. So
don't need a huge audience at all. Can just be just getting started. Yep.
All right. I love it, Molly. Thank you so much for showing up. This is not going to be our last client check-in. I want to be able to check in with you when you surpass hundreds and thousands of dollars. I want to be able to see what your story looks like at that point as well. So let's wrap this up. Where can they find you? I know you have your website, like literally right there.
Yeah, right here. I just put it in the thing. So this is the main place. If you are a dog trainer, you can go to makeitasadogtrainer.com. That's the one that's just for you, for dog trainers. But this is my email address as well. My main thing is that I help any business that works with other people to figure out their people, to know what's going on in their minds, what they value, what they want, why they buy what they buy, how to tweak their offer so that it fits their audience better. how to talk to their audience more, what kind of language to use. So tons and tons of basically just everything under marketing psychology of why people do what they do. So, and also why we do what we do, like how we relate to people because of our personalities. So a lot of personality psychology stuff goes in there as well. So tons of great stuff. And that's where to get it. Whypeopledostuff.com.
I love that, Molly. Whypeopledostuff.com. I so appreciate you waking up super early for this interview. We're gonna be repurposing this across all our social media, so so my audience knows your story. And and I really appreciate you showing up and being the badass action taker that you are. There's a reason why you're successful, and I look forward to continuing helping you in Ignite. So have a great
day. Yeah, happy to help. No problem. Thank you.
I love that. Have a great rest of your day. So what I'm going to do now, Molly, I'm just going to put you back in the green room. I know you're super busy, so you can click the X mark out and get on your merry way and have a wonderful rest of your day over there in Australia.
Sounds good. Thank you so much. I'll see you later.
All right. Bye. So that was Molly. You know, one of the biggest things that I always hear is like, oh, you know, Kim, that's not a real person. So that's why I say, hey, go follow them, go and stalk them, find their website, talk to them, because these are real people. And the fact that Molly did $60,000 in 1 month inside of Ignite, that might sound insane, and it's not unheard of. I have clients who do the same. Some of them do more, some of them do less. Some of them, their first launch, they flop, but they launch 2 weeks later and it's good. So this interview, if you're watching and listening, is so that we can shift the way that you think, because the life you get to live is one that can be wonderful, like how Molly crafted her life, and how to have the peace of mind that you can always turn on a training, talk to your people, help them, and get the financial abundance that you deserve, along with the impact and the income. So with that said, I will see you. If you have questions in terms of like where to go, what to do, go to groupconvertignite.com/application to see if you qualify to come and work with us. All right. So it's groupconvertignite.com/application, and we will see you there. So groupconvertignite.com/application. Apply to come and work with us. We don't work with every single person because, again, I like that our community is just sophisticated, really smart, incredibly intelligent individuals changing the world. So if you feel like that's you, then come on in. Go ahead and apply. All right. Okay. Talk soon. See you guys in the next video.